Hey everybody, it's Safi and Marco Dish Out on Movies, the only movie review show on YouTube to review movies in terms of food. It's just Marco here once again, and I am here today to review two episodes of Mr. Ed. They are the two episodes that have Sharon in them, and they were the only episodes that I was intending on watching. However, I did see that there was a Christmas episode, and so I might be watching that. So right off the bat, I had never seen this show before. I think it's okay. The concept is pretty simple, just like a lot of the sitcom concepts are. I don't really think that there's really many complicated sitcoms. If they are, they probably got canceled after the first season. And if you guys can't hear, that's Safi laughing because she's watching one of the funniest Monk episodes right now. But anyways, I thought that it was really interesting because she was in season 4, episode 3 and episode 11. And here's some conspiracy mathematics, I guess you could say. You do 4 plus 3, so season 4 episode 3. 4 plus 3 is 7. Then you do 4 plus the 11, but in this case the 11 would be 1 and 1. So that's 4 plus 1 and 1, 6. And then of course 6 plus 7 is 13. And her first movie, it was named 13 originally, and then they changed it so that people wouldn't figure it out. But they still wanted to have it in the credits and kind of have it kind of under the radar a little bit. And then the last movie was 12 plus 1, 13. So you can see the number 13 repeating a lot with this character. And I'm saying character because it's pretty clear from these episodes that what they were trying to do was see who she was and see what kind of a character that they could make her into. I thought in particular with the first episode it was very disturbing. It was very I was laughing as Safi was laughing. I thought the first episode, Mr. Ed Discovers America, I thought it was hilarious. But then I saw what was going on, and I stopped laughing. It was very uncomfortable for me. It was like, I know a lot of people, it's the same thing with agendas, where people, they say, oh, what that new Marvel movie is woke? I don't... that new Marvel movie is woke? That's BS. There's no such thing as woke agendas. That's stupid. I don't see any agendas, so therefore there isn't any. That's what people say all the time. Like with Better Call Saul, for example, which I keep using as an example. So it's easy. I should not have chosen to do this review when she's watching one of the funniest episodes, because that episode is so funny. It's one where there's this guy and he had a chimpanzee. And they think that the chimpanzee killed him, and he didn't, of course, and it's a really funny episode. And so I'm kind of hearing it in the background, and it's hard for me to focus, which I think is the first time that's ever happened on this channel, where I've been unable to focus. So it's really a lot easier for me to see these behind the scenes agendas and sort of see the components that they're putting in, like behind the scenes, in terms of the people they cast, the messages, the lines of dialogue. Every single little thing is tailor-made for whatever they're intending on doing in terms of, in this case, it seems like, and now let me just propose a little theory here. Sitcoms were plenty, good and plenty back then. You had tons of different shows. People watched them off and on. But there was this kind of inconsistency where people, they would tune in and out, and so they would miss a lot of episodes, and then, they'd have to see the re-airings, the reruns, or they didn't even have reruns, like in Back to the Future. What's a rerun? And so, and you had tons of them, to the point of where it's just like today, where people don't know what to watch. And so there's this kind of attitude, in my opinion, where you could put stuff in them to signal and to send messages, and it would be a lot easier to do that because people really wouldn't notice. They're not going to scrutinize like they do nowadays, making analysis videos like on every single thing. Back then they could do a lot of this messaging probably in all these sitcoms, and it would be the perfect place, in my opinion. And so it's kind of funny that now, years later, I'm going back and I'm seeing, this is I don't know, it really rubbed me the wrong way. The show, I think the show is pretty good. I wouldn't jump to watch it, like this didn't make me want to watch the whole series like the Waltons did. I still haven't watched a full season of the Waltons, but I really, really like that show a lot. I really enjoy it, and it made me want to watch it when I just watched that one episode last year. And then same thing with Beverly Hillbillies, which I'm going to have to watch a ton of that. So, this first episode, Mr. Ed Discovers America. First, I'm going to review the episode, and then I'm going to talk about Sharon in each one. And I'm going to take a drink. So the first episode is all about, and I don't know the main guy's name in the show. That's another thing, is that I really never even got the guy's name. Like, I don't know how many times they said it. It wasn't very much, because I can't even remember. He is put in charge of the American Museum, and he has to come up with a statue that should represent all of America. And he is obviously being manipulated by his horse, Mr. Ed, and Mr. Ed is telling him that he should make it a horse statue. And he's really having a hard time deciding. He's going around all over asking people, what should the statue be? What should the statue be? And it's kind of clear that the statue should be a horse because reasons, it's the Mr. Ed, the show. It's the same like with the Andy Griffith Show, where they wanted to have a statue, and it's like, well, obviously the statue should be of Andy, and they do. They have statues where the Andy Griffith Show supposedly took place. They have an Andy Griffith, they have Opie, they have Barney, I think, and it's the same with this show, where it's like, it's obvious he should make the statue a horse, and he just, he's kind of an idiot, and he doesn't really, and that's another thing, is it seemed like he has like this quirk where he breaks things. So that's like another part of his character, this main guy, is that he he takes things and he breaks them in 2 seconds. Like in the next one, he just keeps on breaking everything of his neighbors, and it's kind of funny because the neighbor was like his old army colonel or general, and so he's not in charge of him anymore like that. And anyway, the first episode, what ends up happening is that Mr. Ed tells him why he should make the statue a horse. And in essence, he does a retelling of Columbus Day from the perspective of him, where it turns out that all the characters on the show were actually all Columbus and all the other people, and that Mr. Ed was a royal horse or something, or a knight, and that he was actually the one who helped the main guy discover America. And they have this whole thing where Mr. Ed actually steers the ship to America because Christopher Columbus is so stupid that they make fun of, like, there was all this fog and I had to make a couple of U-turns or something. It's really hard to drive in the fog. And there was all this funny stuff. I really loved the second half of this episode where it's a whole, like, parody on Columbus Day, because I really think I love Columbus Day. I don't care that, like, it's quote-unquote insensitive and all that crap. I just really like the name, and I just like the idea of, like, him discovering America. And so and I know that that's shitty to say it, but I do. And I think it's fun, it's cool, it's a great story, and I loved how that story was twisted in this episode to be hilarious, because obviously I know in real life he was a complete piece of shit, and this episode, it makes fun of him. It blatantly, and that's the funny part about this episode, is that it feels like it could have been made today, almost. Because that Mr. Ed is just telling this fake story to persuade his master into, giving him what he wants. And then finally he settles on a cowboy riding a horse, which, that's actually a good compromise in my opinion. So I give this episode an A+. I really loved it. I thought there's a lot of great television from back then. A lot of great shows that, even the smaller shows, the shows with these, like, simple premises, they're really, really good. And they're really smart and really mature. And they're written by people who actually, it actually feels like they're adults. And so now I'm going to get to the behind the scenes. So there was a very weird parallel in this episode, and it kind of took me back because it was so blatant that I didn't really get, like, in terms of if you were to just like take, like, just pretend like you're an idiot, like you're a normie, like you're a normal schlub, and you don't believe in this sort of conspiracy stuff. You don't believe that her murder was the work of multiple individuals. You just believe it was just, the mainstream story, all this BS. Even though all this stuff is right in front of you. Even if you don't believe it, you have to see, like, there is no reason for this parallel in the episode. It is such a strange parallel, and it makes no sense in terms of writing, in terms of story, in terms of theme, character. It is so creepy and weird that it's sort of like it sort of makes me not want to watch the rest of the show, like the rest of Mr. Ed. if I ever decided to do that, because it's like, oh, what other messages are they trying to signal in this show? You know, what other types of creepy, under the radar things do they want to send to each other? I don't want to see it because it's creepy and gross and weird. So what happens is the main guy, he goes to the park to take a poll. And it's sort of like a funny thing where he goes to all these different strangers and he doesn't really, he doesn't get any straight answer. Like there's this one guy who talks to him a lot and he's giving him a really long answer. And then a policeman comes up to him and says, "All right, mister, give him back the watch." And then the guy gives him back his watch, and it turns out it was like a hobo that was stealing his watch. And then the policeman arrests him. And so that was really funny. But the first people that he comes across is a couple. And you have a Navy sailor in uniform, which is like a typical cliche back then, you know, women love men in uniform. And so you see all these movies and shows with like men in uniform hooking up with chicks. They're just constantly making out. And the woman, of course, is Sharon. And so they're just constantly making out. And then he sort of asks the sailor, what should the statue be? And then the guy, obviously, he says dames. Or, yeah, I think he just says dames. And then at one point, the guy stands up, the sailor does, and then somehow it's like this woman is in a trance because she cannot just stop kissing and kissing. And so the main guy, he sits down on the bench to interview Sharon, and she automatically starts kissing on him as if she's in such a trance that she can't even really tell who's who. And then all of a sudden she realizes, or no, it's not, that's the other creepy part. It's not even her that realizes that she's kissing another man. It's the sailor that looks over and he says, "Hey, what are you doing with my girlfriend?" And then she realizes, and there's this like silent, awkward, like it's really creepy. It's like a Bill Cosby type of moment. But it's played off as a joke. And then he gets up, the sailor gets back down, and they start kissing more and more and more. And so the joke is that just they're a young couple kissing. But there was more to it than that. It was very creepy. But that's not the disturbing part. The disturbing part is they had it to where the main guy also played Christopher Columbus. And he's sailing the ship to America. And by the way, the whole Christopher Columbus thing was just perfect. It's probably one of the funniest things I've seen all year. I would highly recommend it. But he's sailing the ship, and he realizes that he's got two crew members. He's got Mr. Ed, and he's got this supposed boy. But it's really weird because there's this little joke where it turns out that the boy is actually the woman who plays his wife, and she's pretending to be a boy so that she can be on his crew. And then he figures out that she is actually a boy, and he says that he designates her his wife, and he starts kissing her exactly like he was kissing on Sharon earlier on in the episode. And that's not if that's not weird enough, the fact that the main guy who encountered a sailor, he's now a sailor himself. So there's some weird stuff going on with that, some weird paralleling going on. But then Mr. Ed is driving, and he stops and he looks in the the scope to see America, the shore, and he looks up, and the whole time Christopher Columbus has been kissing the crew member, exactly like with, sorry, excuse me, I just needed to anyways, exactly like with Sharon earlier in the episode. And he just does not stop kissing her, and then all of a sudden he just does. But it's very weird the way that they took this and they made this like parallel where, you can see there has to be some sort of a message behind it, because other than that, why this whole, like, it's weird. It had a weird feel to it, and it was very bizarre. So that is the messaging of the first episode. Now, in the second episode, I did not really notice any big theme, but there were a couple of weird things about it that I will talk about. But first, the second episode, it was called Mr. Ed, and Love Thy New Neighbor. It's all about the main guy gets a new neighbor, and it's his old army colonel or general, and obviously that is part of the weirdness, is because the military connection, again, with Sharon's father and this character, he was a new character on the show, and he once again looks a lot like her father, just like the father did in Eye of the Devil. And so it was very strange that they added this new character, and that he looks a lot like him, and you have that similarity once again. And it actually is really hilarious, because he gives out these orders to the main guy, like when he gets pissed off at him. So he says, "Attention!" And it's so funny, because the main guy, he is in such a trance from, the army days, that he automatically goes into the army stance, and he starts marching out like he's still a soldier. And I thought that was really kind of creepy and odd too, because it reminded me of like Manchurian Candidate, or like an MK Ultra, like an assassin type of person. Like they played it off as comedy, and it really was funny, because the whole episode, the main guy he's constantly fucking with his neighbor on accident. And in particular, there's this really hilarious part where the guy's TV isn't working, and he tells him to hit his TV, and then his TV just fucking explodes. And it's really funny. And there's this subplot where Mr. Ed is lonely, and he needs someone to talk to. And his first attempt is getting on the telephone and just talking to the telephone operator, who is played by Sharon. And, nothing about her role in this really came off to me like there was anything. It was kind of weird in terms of, I don't know, like that just, I felt like there was something more to that probably I didn't get. There was something weird about the fact that communications, like the fact that this whole episode, a lot of it is about communicating, sending messages, because then what happens is that Mr. Ed gets a shortwave radio, and he starts communicating with all these different countries and things, and it sort of reminded me of, like, how these episodes with her in them, it's like they're communicating a signal, a coded message, and it's like this episode is confirming it or something. Like the first episode was the meat and potatoes of the message. This episode was confirming the first message. That's, in my opinion, the way it felt like. I don't know if I'm right. I probably won't ever know, obviously, because these people are fucking creepy weirdos and they don't want to tell me anything. And probably a lot of them are dead too, who did the message writing. But okay, so I give the episode a B plus because it kind of got a little repetitive. It was very funny at some points, but it did not make me laugh as much as the first episode. That being said, I really liked the show. You know, I could definitely see myself watching it and reviewing each season. You know, I think that it's so cool that this horse got to do this show and that he got to have all this attention and everything. And I think, you know, it's cool. It's like, it'd be nice to have some more like cleverly done animal movies and shows, because it's cool. It's like the horse's mouth is moving and, you know, he's acting like the character, and it's really interesting the way that they got him to do this stuff. It's like, how did they do that? It's really cool. It's so much more clever than nowadays, where, you know, like just the movie Nope. You know, that shitty ass movie Nope that I watched a month ago. Oh God, ugh. Where they had like CGI horses and stuff. Like, oh God, oh, that movie was terrible. It's like nowadays, you know that if they made a Mr. Ed Shower movie, he would be computer generated. But back then, they actually, you know, they had to do it for real. And I can't believe that the same horse did it almost the whole show, if not the whole show. You know, it's really, really cool. I really admire them for doing that. You know, as a kid, I kind of thought the show was like a joke, but now that I'm an adult, I really respect the show, and I really like the show a lot. And so I'm glad that I watched these 2 episodes. So with the second episode, the reason why I would say that both episodes can connect in a weird way is because in both episodes there's a small joke about not being able to see something because it's too foggy. And I know that, you know, writers repeat themselves. You know, for me in particular, I'll tell you guys something. In all of my scripts, really, it always ends in a lower level room. So in the first script I wrote, it ends in a basement. In the second script I wrote, it ends in a basement. It kinda goes up and down from the basement. In certain, because it has 5 different endings. And then with the third script I wrote, let's see. No, the third script ends in a bedroom. But then this new script that I've been writing for Valentine's Day, it might or it might not end in like a lower level room. So, you know, writers repeat themselves a lot, and so it wouldn't really be surprising that, you know, oh, they'd have these similar lines of dialogue or similar jokes or similar things that they talk about. But it's really strange that in both of Sharon's episodes that there's these small jokes about, I can't see something because it's too foggy. And so I thought that was really strange. And then also okay, I was just reading my notes. There is also talk in both episodes about eagles being like chickens. And so in the first episode, he automatically thinks I should make the statue a golden eagle because eagles are they represent America. And then Mr. Ed starts saying, no, eagles are like stupid chickens. They're bald-headed chickens. And then in the second episode, he makes that same joke about eagles being bald-headed chickens at the end of the episode. And that's actually the last joke of the episode, is if it's like ending the code. It's saying, 10-4, bye-bye. So I thought it was really weird that they, in both of these episodes, they had these repeating jokes, or, they were kind of different jokes, but they're joking about the same thing. It would be like, what if you were in 2 episodes of Malcolm in the Middle, and in both episodes, they joked about Dr. Pepper. It doesn't have to be the same joke, but just the fact that in both of the episodes that you're in, they're joking about Dr. Pepper. It's a weird coincidence, and it's definitely not a coincidence. It's a sign that there was some sort of a message underneath the surface that they were sending to people, and they thought nobody's going to notice, really, because nobody's going to scrutinize this. They're just going to come home, watch the TV, turn it off, say their prayers, and go to bed. They're not going to think too much about anything on television. And so, sorry, but playtime's over. And so I have now concluded my review of these 2 Mr. Ed episodes. But I would also like to make a little announcement. Next month, I will not only be reviewing another project of Sharon's, but I will also be doing another psychic reading. But this will be a different psychic, and this one, it might be the one that I drew a picture of without realizing it, and she has some sort of a connection to her, and so I don't know. I will be doing that on her birthday on the 24th, the anniversary of her birthday. And I will be doing it at 10 o'clock in the morning, and then I will be able to release that as an episode too, because I think I get the transcripts, or I will just secretly record it, and then kind of or I'll write down notes or something for you guys. So that will be very interesting, because she did do 3 videos on her, and the stuff that she says just confirms all the stuff that I said. In fact, if you watch her videos, they kind of parallel some of those drawings that I was doing. The weird ones that I was showing in that evidence video. The images are kind of eerily similar to the images that she was seeing. And so that's kind of weird as well. It just shows it's something weird going on. Anyways, please like this video, comment, tell me what you thought about these weird hidden messages, and then please subscribe to our channel if you'd like to see more Sharon related videos. Goodbye, everybody. See you soon.